I was in the place in my pregnancy where my baby was the size of an avocado. Yes, pregnant women do things like that. They follow the embryonic development with what size of fruit that child is, and I knew no better, so I did the same. Anyway, we were back from Dubai from an amazing wedding, and we were standing in the immigration line, obviously for non-EU citizens like me, which takes hours to get out of the airport. We went to the baggage claim, took our bags, and just as a normal day, I was in love with my avocado, with my life, with my husband, and things as usual. We started walking up, and I told my husband, I'll see you at Starbucks upstairs. And just as we were walking to this place where we could potentially blow up, we heard one huge blast, and then another, and then the roof just started falling down on us. We looked at each other, we threw our bags, we didn't know any better, we held each other's hands, and we just ran out of the place. We saw people shocked, panicking, and crying hysterically. We saw people crouching behind cars in the parking lot. We saw injured bodies being taken out of the ambulance. And it wasn't easy. I'm a survivor of a terrorist attack that happened on the 22nd of March, 2016, last year. And my son, who is now a 10-month-old boy, happens to be the youngest survivor of this terror attack. I guess T minus 6 months is a very young age to be. So he was the youngest. So what can non-combatant citizens like us do in a situation like this? No one, whether you're a teacher, a student, a friend, a diner, a hotelier, a friend's friend, none of us can escape such a situation if it happens to us. So don't get me wrong, this is not a practical guide to survive a terror attack. This is more like surviving a terror attack 101, where you should learn how to keep calm and carry on. And by the way, the Keep Calm and Carry On poster was a campaign created by the British government in 1939 as a response to World War I and to raise the public morale in awareness. So I guess this is my version of Keep Calm and Carry On, where you should all know that there is a way to live when you see death so closely. My first point is explore, admit to your biases, and don't be swayed by them. Look at this picture. How likely do you think you are to die of a shark attack if you go swimming in the ocean? Should I give you a fact? You're far more likely to die of a coconut falling on your head while you're just lying on the beach. This is what we do, and this is how our mind works. We judge the frequency or the probability of something happening to us by the image that it creates in our mind. So of course, this looks far more likely to kill us than something like this. We make illogical inferences and miscalculations based on irrational judgments of the situation, depending on how the information was given to us in the first place. This is called cognitive bias. The master of tapping into our cognitive bias is President Donald Trump. I know this creates a lot of stir all the time, but the truth is, this man is a mastermind, trying to tell us that banning 7 Muslim-dominated country travel to his nation, which is America, he has created this rhetoric that somehow claims that Muslim equal terrorist, terrorist equal threat, and threat equal can't make America great again, so let's keep them out. He's done the same with undocumented immigrants, he's done the same with Mexicans and his ridiculous ideas of creating a wall around his country, which we all recognize as ridiculous, but the truth is we don't know the numbers that don't support this. The truth is, there's been 96 deaths of radical Islamic terror in America since September 9/11. In the same span of time, there's been more than 300,000 deaths of gun attacks done by Americans to their own people. But how few of us step back to think about this? This leads me immediately into my next point. It's funny to think that you actually might choke and die more likely than be in a terror attack. So, I would recommend that you really chew your food and swallow more than worry about being a part of something like this. But news is news for a reason. It's because negativity sells. Because people think that it's far more true and profound when your representation of an event is negative. For example, as soon as I was safe from this, a very dear friend put up on her Twitter account that my friend, pregnant, has run out of the airport and is now safe. About 15 to 20 news networks contacted me. About 10 followed up. Just 2 wrote an article on me because Everything that I discussed with them was positive. It was my hope for the future, it was what I wanted for my child, and it was exactly what I wanted to say and how I perceived the event. But it was not negative, unfortunately. I got no airtime for it. I was never on TV, and nobody was interested in this because, of course, news has a certain way of functioning. The other way in which news functions is that words change our memories of the situation. For example, this article that said bloodbath in Brussels was, of course, highly exaggerated. And my mother, for example, who was sitting in India, had a mental breakdown thinking of what trauma I went through. This isn't to take away from the fact that 34 people died at Brussels airport. But truthfully speaking, more people die in Bombay locals every week. Do we call that a bloodbath or a ticket to hell? No, we don't. Recognizing this as propaganda is one thing, we all do, but the only way to save ourselves from it truthfully is step back and detox from media. Now, in a world that's so connected, we need a real solution. Cutting ourselves off from all media is not really an option for any of us. So what do? I recommend you read. Reading is a powerful tool that teaches you about things in far greater depth and increases your corpus of knowledge in a more stable way than, for example, watching the news. One of the most influential books I read after the attacks that has completely changed my worldview is Steven Pinker's The Better Angels of Our Nature. I urge all of you to read that book. It just made me realize that truth, as far as the real numbers go, violence has gone down, social justice has gone up, rape has gone down, women's rights have gone up. Think about all of you women sitting here in the audience today. I'm giving a TED talk, you're here at an intellectual event. 50 years ago, you were not a part of intellectual discussions. 70 years ago, it was odd if you studied science or math. 100 years ago, you had no say in any corpus of governance outside your house. And 200 years ago, you were just territory that was conquered from one man to another. This made me realize that, yeah, I am actually living in the best possible scenario or the best possible time in human history to actually make a difference. And no matter what the news says, the world is a remarkable place to be here and now. This brings me to my third point, which is explore your religious beliefs. I'm a Jain, and for all of you who don't know what Jainism is, Jainism is one of the most non-violent religions in the world, to the extent that we don't want to create harm or cause harm to even the smallest life form on this planet. Around the same time as the attacks, a 13-year-old girl embarked on a 68-day fast where she had no food and only water. She was celebrated, she was encouraged. I made calls to her. She was family. On the 70th day after she finished this fast, she passed away. It occurred to me that there is a problem with religion, and I became a New Age atheist. What is a New Age atheist? A New Age atheist is somebody who realizes that religion today, as we practice it, is perhaps not as relevant as it used to be. And if it can't move with the times, we can't move ahead. Even moderated, educated individuals like us sometimes take things with a pinch of salt. We take a leap of faith. This leap of faith becomes our worldview, and at some point, this worldview becomes an action. The action could have catastrophic consequences on the world, ranging from the death of one child to a suicide bomber attacking 100 people at one time. This is not my endeavor to tell you to be an atheist like me. In fact, I want to urge you to see the humanity in religion. But I want to remind you that having done this, we also need to keep open, candid conversations and dialogue about how deep-rooted the conflict between reason and faith is, and we should be able to discern, as more than an average human being, what rational and irrational is within religion and faith. My fourth point is empathize with people. It's so easy. For example, when somebody read the CNN article on Twitter, she reached out to me. She was an Irish lawyer sitting in Ireland, and she decided that this story was somebody's story who she could connect with and reach out to. She wrote to me and said, I resonate with you. Tell me more about yourself. Tell me where you come from. Tell me what you do. Tell me what your fears are. And she's my friend today. She even went to the extent of sending me a painting of the ultrasound of my unborn child home from Ireland to Belgium. I mean, this just reminded me simply that humanity is phenomenal and the human-to-human contact is irreplaceable. I mean, reach out to people, harness the power of social media, like their posts, share their stories, show them support, let them know that there is a human consciousness beyond your own life where we all connect, no matter how disconnected we might be in the larger picture. Don't forget the power of the smallest gesture. I remember when I got out of the airport authorities had swept into assertive actions immediately. They weren't running and scampering around trying to save their lives. They were trying to save as many other lives as they could. When we ran onto the highway, there were taxi drivers, which is pretty uncommon on a highway to stop, but people were stopping to talk to strangers who were crying and stranded on the street and give them rides home. People even opened up their houses for people who were stranded at Brussels airport. Actions that humanity do, we think are small, but actually ask anyone around you. In moments of adversity, the way mankind comes together today is not the same as any other time in the history of mankind. And use this power to empathize and reach out and do your bit. This brings me to my last point. Learn how to synthesize happiness. Now, Dan Gilbert, a Harvard psychologist, has explained that a happy life is not about getting what you want. It's about learning how to enjoy what you don't get. For example, we have no control over things that are external factors. So how can we base our happiness on things like that? You should instead learn how to synthesize your happiness because it's more in your control and it's more something that you can apply with discipline and practice. All along, this terrorist attack has been a metaphor for any adversity, any loss, any hate crime, any irrational people, which sometimes are far worse than any terrorist you'll ever encounter. It's been a metaphor to tell you that life does really go on. Fast forward a year, and this is my son, a healthy, happy 10-month-old baby. And I think, like all parents do, that he is beyond brilliant and exceptional, where he's very normal. And it just really made me reflect that avocados become pears, pears become melons, melons become watermelons, and then they become beautiful babies. And life really goes on. All you have to do is keep calm and carry on and apply this survival of terrorism 101 that I have just discussed, which means explore your biases, do a media detox, explore your religious beliefs, harness the power of social media, and empathize with people, synthesize your own happiness, and move on. I'd like to leave you guys with a letter that I had written at the time, and that was published. So this is to all of you. I don't know, hi sweetheart, I don't know if we already acknowledged this with you in person, but when you were 16 weeks old, Mom and Dad were in an explosion at Brussels airport. And no matter where humanity is today, I just want to tell you that life is a wonderful thing and the world is really full of remarkable people. You didn't just give Mom and Dad the faith and reason to live, you gave us the awareness and presence of mind like never before. I felt more alive than I ever have, and I knew I had to protect you. So I was calm, composed, and fully aware that we will survive. When we reached St. Augustine's emergency and saw you oblivious, sucking at your thumb in the ultrasound, all the mistrust, hate, and angst for the terrorist attacks vaporized. I do hope with all my heart that you are born into a better world. And if not, then you do your absolute best to make it that. You're precious to us and have already been a hero today. And I guess the world has sent so much love and hope your way that you owe your life to reciprocating this goodness. May you always be brave and healthy. We love you beyond words, Mom and Dad. This is my wish for all of you here, not just Zane. Thank you.